In the dim glow of a packed courtroom, where the air hung heavy with anticipation and the weight of decades-old prejudices, an elderly black man named Walter Greene sat shackled at the defense table. His face, etched with lines of hardship and quiet dignity, betrayed no fear, only a resigned acceptance of the system's relentless grip. The judge's gavel echoed like a final nail in a coffin, as the prosecution painted him as a monster, a convenient scapegoat for a crime he never committed. Whispers rippled through the audience, a mix of skeptical locals and indifferent observers, all expecting the inevitable upholding of his life sentence. But then the doors swung open and two figures strode in. A confident white man in a sharp suit and a poised white woman with a folder clutched tightly in her hands. Their eyes locked on Walter, filled with a fierce determination that silenced the room. These were no strangers. They were the ghosts of his past, now fully grown and armed with truth. As they took the stand, the tension thickened, the air electric, with the promise of revelation. How could these polished professionals, products of privilege, hold the key to freeing a man condemned by the very society that once shunned him? The story unfolded like a slow-burning fuse, revealing layers of sacrifice and betrayal. Walter had once been a beacon in the darkness for them, defying the racial barriers of a divided town. Now, after 2 decades of silence and separation, they returned not out of obligation, but out of a bond forged in the fires of adversity. The courtroom held its breath as they began to unravel the web of lies that had ensnared him. Would their testimony pierce the veil of injustice, or would the system swallow yet another innocent soul? The stakes were life itself, and the clock ticked toward a verdict that could redefine redemption. In a world quick to judge by color, this was a tale of humanity's quiet rebellion, where kindness planted in barren soil bloomed into salvation. Back in the sweltering summer of 1985, in a small southern town where segregation's shadows still lingered long after the laws had changed, Walter Greene lived a simple life. A hard-working mechanic with calloused hands and a gentle spirit, Walter had grown up navigating the invisible lines that divided his community. Black families clustered. On one side of the tracks, white on the other, with mistrust simmering like the humid air. He rented a modest house on the edge of town, fixing cars by day and tending a small garden by night, finding solace in the rhythm of honest labor. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled across the sky, Walter spotted 2 small figures huddled under a leaky bridge near the railroad. They were children, no more than 8 and 10 years old, drenched, shivering, and alone. Their pale skin stood out against the mud-streaked clothes, marking them as outsiders in his part of town. Homeless white kids, abandoned perhaps by parents lost to addiction or despair, they scavenged for scraps, their eyes wide with hunger and fear. Walter hesitated, knowing the risks. In this place, a black man approaching white children could spark rumors, accusations, even violence. But something deeper stirred within him. A memory of his own childhood hardships, orphaned young and raised by a struggling aunt. Approaching slowly, he offered them shelter, a warm meal, and dry clothes from his own closet. The boy, thin and wary, and the girl, clutching her brother's hand, followed him home without a word. Walter didn't plan to keep them. He intended to alert authorities the next day. But when social services arrived, the system faltered. Overburdened and tinged with bias, they dismissed the kids as runaways, unwilling to place them with a single black man. Whispers spread through town. What business does he have with those white children? Neighbors glared, and anonymous threats appeared on his doorstep, yet Walter couldn't turn them away. He saw in their vulnerability a mirror of the injustices he faced daily, the denied opportunities, the suspicious glances, the assumption of guilt. Quietly, he became their guardian, navigating legal hurdles with the help of a sympathetic lawyer. He enrolled them in school, taught them to read under the porch light, and shared stories of resilience from his ancestors. The town watched with growing disdain, labeling him an interloper, but Walter persisted. He worked extra shifts to afford their needs, shielding them from the slurs hurled in passing. The kids, Emily and Jack, blossomed under his care, their initial silence giving way to laughter that filled the house. As years passed, the bond deepened. Walter faced subtle sabotage at work, tools gone missing, customers turning away, fueled by racial resentment over his unnatural family. But he bore it silently, focusing on giving them a foundation. Little did he know, this act of defiance against division would one day circle back, as the seeds of loyalty took root in fertile hearts. Curiosity built. How would this unconventional family withstand the storms ahead? As the 1990s dawned, the fragile peace in Walter's home began to fracture under mounting external pressures. The town, steeped in old grudges, amplified its hostility. Emily and Jack, now teenagers, experienced the sting of racism firsthand, not directed at them, but at the man they called family. Classmates taunted them with cruel nicknames, questioning their loyalty to a black guardian. Walter, ever stoic, advised them to rise above, sharing tales of civil rights marches he had witnessed, instilling lessons of empathy and endurance. But the injustice escalated when a local crime wave hit. A string of burglaries plagued the affluent, white neighborhoods, and suspicion inevitably fell on Walter. His garage, filled with tools, became a target for rumors. One night, a prominent businessman's home was robbed and fabricated evidence. A misplaced wrench traced back to Walter's shop sealed his fate. The police, influenced by community bias, arrested him swiftly, ignoring alibis from Emily and Jack. The trial was a farce. Witnesses swayed by prejudice testified against him, painting Walter as a resentful outsider seeking revenge on the system that kept him down. The courtroom dripped with tension. The jury a reflection of the town's demographics, mostly white, quick to convict. Walter's public defender, overworked and underfunded, couldn't counter the racial undercurrents. Sentenced to life for a crime he didn't commit, Walter was torn from his home, his final glance at Emily and Jack filled with unspoken apologies. The kids, devastated, were thrust into foster care, separated and scattered. Emily landed with a distant relative, while Jack bounced between homes, their connection to Walter severed by bureaucracy. In prison, Walter endured the grind of isolation, his spirit tested by guards' taunts and fellow inmates' skepticism. Letters from Emily and Jack arrived sporadically, their words a lifeline, promising to uncover the truth. But years turned into a decade, and hope faded. Emily pursued law, driven by the injustice she witnessed, while Jack became a journalist. Digging into corruption, they uncovered hints of a setup. The businessman had ties to local officials, and the evidence was planted to cover a gambling debt scandal. Emotional stakes soared as they reunited in secret, piecing together documents and interviewing reluctant witnesses. The town's racism had evolved but persisted. Subtle denials of access, anonymous threats to drop the case. Walter's health deteriorated in the harsh confines, his once strong frame weakened by neglect. The siblings faced their own battles. Emily's career stalled by associations with a criminal. Jack's stories suppressed by editors fearing backlash. Yet their determination grew, fueled by memories of Walter's sacrifices, the nights he went hungry so they could eat, the stands he took against bullies on their behalf. Tension peaked as they filed for an appeal, risking everything. The system resisted, with delays and dismissed motions, but glimmers of progress emerged. A whistleblower's tip, a DNA test challenging the evidence. The emotional toll mounted. Sleepless nights, strained relationships, the constant reminder of racial divides that had stolen their father figure. Would their efforts breach the walls of prejudice, or would Walter languish forever, a victim of unchecked bias? The appeal hearing arrived like a storm front. charging the atmosphere in the same courthouse where Walter's nightmare began. Now, in his 60s, he entered frail but unbowed, his graying hair and stooped posture a testament to the years stolen from him. The gallery buzzed with a mix of curious onlookers and hardened skeptics, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and unspoken biases. Emily, now a sharp attorney in her 30s, stood at the podium, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Jack sat nearby, notebooks in hand, ready to document every twist. The prosecution, led by a veteran lawyer with ties to the old guard, reopened old wounds, reiterating the ironclad evidence and questioning the motives of Walter's adopted children. But Emily countered with precision, presenting new forensics. The wrench bore fingerprints not matching Walter's, linked instead to a hired thief in the businessman's employ. Gasps echoed as she revealed emails from the original investigation, showing pressured witnesses and overlooked leads, all tainted by racial profiling. This isn't just a miscarriage of justice, she argued, her eyes scanning the judge. It's a deliberate act of discrimination, punishing a man for his color and his compassion. Tension coiled tighter as Jack took the stand, his journalistic findings laid bare. He detailed the scandal. The businessman, drowning in debt, had orchestrated the burglary to claim insurance, framing Walter as an easy target in a town eager to believe the worst of a black man crossing racial lines. Exhibits flashed on screens, timelines, affidavits, a confession from the actual perpetrator, now remorseful after years in hiding. The room grew restless, murmurs turning to outrage as the layers peeled away. The judge, a newer appointee with a reputation for fairness, leaned forward, his expression shifting from neutrality to concern. The prosecution fought back fiercely, cross-examining Emily and Jack with insinuations of bias, suggesting their loyalty stemmed from misplaced gratitude, rather than facts. These witnesses were children, the lawyer sneered, influenced by a man who overstepped boundaries. But Emily held firm, recounting the systemic barriers Walter faced, from job denials to police harassment, culminating in this frame-up. Emotional undercurrents surged. Walter's gaze met theirs across the room, a silent exchange of enduring love amid the chaos. As the day wore on, a pivotal moment shattered the stalemate. A surprise witness, an elderly white neighbor who had once shunned Walter, stepped forward. Haunted by guilt, she admitted to withholding information about seeing the real thief that night, silenced by community pressure. Her testimony, trembling but resolute, tipped the scales. The judge called a recess, the courtroom erupting in whispers. In that break, Walter felt a flicker of possibility, his heart pounding with the intensity of long-suppressed hope. Resuming, the prosecution's case crumbled under the weight of revelations. The judge, addressing the court, acknowledged the racial injustices embedded in the original trial, the hasty arrest, the biased jury selection, the ignored exculpatory evidence. Drama peaked as he ruled, the life sentence vacated. Walter, too, be released pending retrial, with strong indications of full exoneration. Cheers mixed with sobs. Emily and Jack rushed to Walter, their embrace a powerful symbol in the stunned silence. The system, for once, bent toward justice, but not without the scars of the battle exposed. In the weeks following the hearing, Walter walked free, stepping into sunlight that felt warmer, more forgiving. Emily and Jack stood by his side, their family reunited not just in presence but in purpose. The town, forced to confront its prejudices, saw ripples of change, investigations into past cases, community dialogues on racism. Walter, though marked by prison's toll, found peace in simple joys, tending his garden again, sharing meals with his now adult children. The story spread, inspiring articles and talks, highlighting how one act of kindness bridged divides and dismantled injustice. Emily continued her legal work, advocating for the wrongfully convicted, while Jack's reporting exposed systemic flaws. Walter's life, once confined, became a testament to resilience. But the deeper impact lingered in quiet reflections. In a world divided by color, true change begins with individual choices. What if more crossed those lines, planting seeds of empathy? Imagine the chains that could break. Let this story challenge you. How will you defy division today?